Good morning, everybody. First confirmation class for this year. A couple of things as we start. First off, just I say this every year. I know there's probably many other things you would like to be doing right now, other things you would like to be involved in. I understand that very well. I said, but for some of us, we're about to embark on matters of what I consider life and death, stuff that are vitally important. Not only for now, but for eternity. I ask that you give me the respect for that. Some people choose to live their lives for all kinds of stuff. I choose to live my life for God. And I've given up a lot of things on the way to do that. And it's that important to me. I mean, I was given a full ride scholarship to Texas A&M to go into engineering, turned it down to follow the call to be a pastor. So I mean, I know what it is to give up a lot of things. And to me, this is vitally important. It's also important to your parents, or else they wouldn't have you here. So I ask that you give me the respect to listen to what I have to say, to engage it. At the end of the confirmation, you are going to be making a decision as to whether or not you are going to be following Jesus for the rest of your life. And that's your answer. At that point in time, if you want to tell me to go to hell and that you don't want a thing to do with the church after that, you're free to do that. That's your choice. But I want to take some time to convince you why I think it's very important, not only for your time here on earth, but for eternity, why you follow Jesus Christ. So if you'll give me that respect and that opportunity to do that, I'd really appreciate that. We're going to be covering some things that we covered in past years, but part of it is to kind of keep it fresh in your mind. Part of my task today is to begin going through some of the articles of faith. When you were baptized, your parents promised that they would teach you the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, and the Ten Commandments. And one of the things that I hope to accomplish this year is to get through all of those things if possible. So we actually did the Lord's Prayer on retreat. Now we're going to start on the Apostles' Creed, and then hopefully we'll work through the Ten Commandments. Do you have any questions at this point with just the initial things that I've said? Anything? You cool? All right, today we begin with the Apostles' Creed. And the Apostles' Creed was actually formulated by the early church. It was a method of figuring out what the early church believed and what it didn't believe. Do you think that the early church or the church at any time has always agreed on everything? Do you think that it has? No, it hasn't. In fact, there were all types of different movements in the early church. Some of them were called heresies. When a movement was called a heresy, that means it said this is outside what we normally believe. And they said, well, how do you know what is outside we believe? How do you know what is wrong? Well, in order to know what's wrong, you have to know what's what? You have to know what's right. And so the early church started putting together what's called creeds, and these are statements of faith of the things that we believe. We believe that these are the right things to believe in the Christian faith. And the first article of the creed, it has 3 articles. An article is, well, you know what an article is, right? Like this shirt is an article of clothing. These pants are an article of clothing. My boots are an article of clothing. Each piece, you put them all together, you got an outfit, right? Same thing with the Apostles' Creed. You have 3 articles. You have Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and together they form the outfit of the Christian faith. Article 1 is very easy. I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. So that's what we say is right when we talk about God. So just as a fun thing, if that's what's right about God, what do you think some of the wrong things about God were? You got any ideas?
Denying God.
Denying God, right, that God does not exist. Absolutely, that was one. Other ones? Questions? What about creating heaven and earth? If God created heaven and earth, is heaven and earth bad? Not necessarily. But there was a group in the early church that considered heaven and or earth to be bad, that the material world was bad, and the only thing you need to focus on was the spiritual world. But if God created the earth, then you don't ignore the world. And so to put that article in the creed was very, very important for the early church. So, a couple of the things that the article states is, number one, there is a God. Number two, that there is a creation, and God created it. And because God created, that means there are some implications to that. We'll start filling in those blanks in just a minute. But I just wanted to throw that out with you and let you have a little fun with it. The first thing we're going to look at is Luther's Small Catechism. You have this sheet in front of you. Will someone please read that paragraph there under Luther's Small Catechism? Do I have a volunteer? Kylie, please, you have your hand up first.
I believe that God has made me and all creatures, that He has given me and my body, soul, eyes, ears, and all of my limbs, my reason, and all of my senses, and still preserves them. In addition thereto, clothing and shoes, meat and drink, house and homestead, wife and children, fields, cattle, and all of my goods. That He provides me richly and daily with all that I need to support this body and life, protects me from all danger, all guards me with, and preserves me from all evil. And all this out of pure, verily divine goodness and mercy, without any merit or worthiness in me. For all which I owe to Him to thank, praise, serve, and obey Him. This is most certainly true.
Thank you. Now, the reason we're looking at Luther's Small Catechism is the fact that we're Lutheran. We belong to a church that was started by Martin Luther. And when he was going through what we call the Reformation, there was a lot of upheaval. There was a lot of people who didn't know much about the Christian faith. And so he wrote what's called the Small Catechism. And in that Small Catechism, he was teaching about the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, the Ten Commandments. And this is his teaching on God the Father. So he's basically laying out what it means when we say, I believe in God the Father, maker of heaven and earth. And he put it in this one simple little paragraph. And in it he basically says that God made what? What did God make? First sentence.
Us.
Us. Me and
Creatures.
all creatures. Everything. But Luther does not say God just made everything. Because does Luther say that God made it all and then quit? Did God make everything and just, that's it? What else does God do? What else does God do besides make everything?
Protect us.
Protect us, guards us. There's another one, but there's something else that he does tremendously. Yes, Tyler. Preserves me from evil. Yes. What else?
Love.
Love, absolutely. What else?
Mercy.
Do what?
Mercy.
Mercy. Yes. What else? Provides, yes. Provides. So, God makes and provides. And another word for that is sustains. Us and the world. Do you know at the very smallest levels of this world, the basic building block of matter that that most folks talk about is the atom, right? And we know that the atom has a nucleus with protons and electrons, or with protons and neutrons, and then they have electrons that kind of flow around in this cloud. And these electrons actually would collapse in on themselves, and the atoms would fall apart. But for some unknown reason, a photon, does everybody know what a photon is? It's a little particle of light. And these little photons come out of nowhere and pass through the atom and keep it from collapsing. And as far as scientists know, they can find nowhere where these photons come from. They have no clue. They just pop in and out of existence. Think about that. This particle just pops in and out of existence. It just all of a sudden is there. How in the world does that something happen? How does something just come out of nothing in order to keep an atom from closing in on itself? And you're made up of atoms, so if these photons weren't coming in and out of existence, guess what would happen to you? Well, we wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? God sustains the world, even at its most basic level. God provides for the atom to make sure it doesn't collapse in on itself. God sustains it. God does that for you and me. Over and over again, daily, He provides, gives, cares, loves you. That's what Luther is trying to get across in his explanation. That God makes us, provides, and sustains for us. Alright, you have any questions on that? Okay, we're going to leave Luther and we're going to head into just looking at this statement piece by piece so that we come to understand it a little better. This next part will be familiar to many of you who were in class last year, but it's important to kind of glance over again and talk about. Because first and foremost, when we say, I believe in God, that means we are saying there is a God versus there is no God. Now, this is actually a very important argument. It's one that goes on several times on college campuses and stuff like that. When you leave and maybe go to college later, I guarantee you will have some professors, at least maybe one or two, who will say there is no God, and they will try to argue that very vehemently. And they will try to convince you there is no proof whatsoever of God and everything else like that. Well, depends on what your definition of proof is. This is something I do know. There are some consequences in saying there is no God. Because if you say there is no God, then there's no truth. There's no right or wrong. Well, let me change that. There's no basis for right or wrong. Basically, there's no way to distinguish good and evil. There's no purpose in life. And life has no meaning. Now, let me ask you this question. Without appealing to God, tell me why it is wrong to kill another person. Can you come up with a good reason? Why shouldn't I kill another person?
I can't do that without mentioning God.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. You have to go there.
Kylie, what do you think a reason would be?
God created.
Oh, you just appealed to God. I said don't appeal to God. Don't give me a reason based on God. Tell me why you shouldn't kill another person without saying God in any way, shape, or form.
It's like against the law.
Who made the law? Huh?
The people that were made by God.
Well, I said no appeals to God.
Exactly.
You want to appeal to the law? Okay, fine. Appeal to the law. Tell me it's against the law. Well, who made the law?
Government.
The government made the law. So if I believe I can get away with it and the government won't catch me, why shouldn't I kill another person?
You're not supposed to.
Why?
Morally wrong.
How?
I mean,
They
you
don't
can't
like
just kill a
talking
guy.
forever.
Huh?
I mean, you just killed a guy, so.
So?
It was like haunt you forever, maybe.
Guys, give up. It's impossible.
Yeah, we should probably just stop.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna win this one.
Do you see the difficulty in it? And
There
see, the
might
thing
be
is,
like a little loophole.
huh?
There
No,
might
I,
be a
no, let me
Difficulty
tell you
is
this,
in
let me tell you this. If there is no God, and there is no, and you wanna appeal to the law, that's fine. But then society is the one who makes the laws. The government is the one who makes the laws. What happened in Nazi Germany?
Hitler rose to power, killed all the Jews, and ended up becoming World War II.
Yeah, well, we basically said, okay, we can kill Jews, we can kill gays, we can kill anybody who's different. And they did. Is that right?
No.
No.
But the government made the laws. If there's no God, then the person with the biggest stick makes the rules. And that can be very, very bad for people who are not strong and what have you. So, without an appeal to God, you have no basis for right and wrong. Now, let's have some fun with meaning. With meaning. How in the world would your life have meaning if there's no God? How would your life have purpose if there's no God? You know what's going to happen to this planet in about 4 or 5 billion years?
We all gone.
Yeah, we're going to be all gone because the sun is going to start expanding. It's going to use up all its fuel. It's going to expand. It's going to burn everything here on the earth to a crisp. There's going to be nothing left. You know, even your bones and ashes will be disintegrated. They will be burned up. There will be zero, nothing, nada. Which means, if you don't believe in God, everything that you do now is only important now. That's it. Who's going to remember you in 500 years?
No one, probably.
If you're famous, okay, name me someone who lived 500 years ago.
My great grandpa, Leonardo da Vinci,
Leonardo da Vinci, yes. That's one.
Albert Einstein.
No,
Washington.
Washington was like the
Washington was a
1700s.
couple hundred years ago. 500. 500. This will be the 1500s.
Was Christopher Columbus? Yeah, Christopher Columbus.
1492. And you can remember some of the history, yes, some of the historical figures. Okay, now let's go back 1,000 years.
The cavemen.
Moses.
Oh, wait.
1,000 years ago.
No, never mind. That's like millions of years ago.
Can any of you remember anybody who was 1,000 years ago?
Adam, Eve.
Oh, there's this guy from the science thing, but I don't know his name. Like the first thing for
So safe to say probably in 1,000 years nobody's going to remember you at all?
Probably not.
Probably not. You'll develop nothing. Anything that you've done, all the work that you do, all the people you love, everything that you're a part of. If there is no God, if there is no eternity, it's all worth nothing. Period. Is that comforting?
No.
No.
That's the reality if there is no God. But if there is God, we have truth, we have meaning, we have right and wrong, we have purpose in life. You know, we have all of these things that are there. Why is it wrong to kill another person? Because that other person is created in the image of God. God loves that other person, cares for that other person, just like He loves and cares for me.
You appealed to God.
Absolutely. I'm saying if there is a God. If there is a God, everything that I do has purpose, it has meaning. Because God remembers. And He has given me a purpose, He has given me a meaning. You know, when it comes to confirmation and everything else, when you have the ability to choose whether or not you want to follow Jesus or not, this is something that I hope you think about. If you decide to give it up, you're giving up truth, you're giving up right and wrong, you're giving up purpose in life, you're having no meaning. It's gone. Any questions? We believe in God. The next step is I need a bigger eraser. This little big thing.
Right there.
Oh, Wonderful, thank you for pointing that out. I'm not Captain Obvious or anything, am I? God the Father. Now, personally, I don't care if you want to call God Mother. That doesn't bother me in the least. You can call God Mother, Father, Parent. And basically all the same. Jesus referred to God as Father. I refer to God as Father because of that. Other people are comfortable with mother terminology. The point is that God is like a parental figure. God watches over us, cares for us, loves us, provides us everything that we need, just like your parents try to do that to us. God has compassion, mercy. God gave His life in Jesus for us, just like our parents would give their lives for us. But I want to say that God is not only just a parent, a good parent, a perfect parent. Any of you know anyone who has had a father that has been abusive or hadn't been so good? Or maybe a mother who yells and screams at them all the time, never shows them any love? You know anybody who's been through that kind of stuff in their lives? Any kids whose parents may have left them and abandoned them and never contacted them? You ever hear of parents who do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, on TV.
Happens in real life, let me tell you. Met a few. Sometimes these folks, when that happens, they say, well, I don't want to look at God as my father. I don't want to look at God as my mother or parent because I've been deeply hurt by my parents. It's understandable. That's why we have to say a good parent, a perfect parent. God is the type of parent that we as parents should be. Good Lord knows I'm not perfect. My daughter sitting right over there can vouch for that. She will tell you that I mess up. She will tell you that there are times that I told her I was going to do something and I forgot and didn't do it. She will tell you that I am not perfect in the least. None of our parents are. We're imperfect people trying to do the best job that we can. And one of the things that we try to do is point you to the parent who is perfect. The one who does the things that we don't. So if you have a friend who at times, kind of gets upset about talking about their parents or as God as the father or something like that, help them see that God is the parent that they never had. God is the parent who they should have had. And help them see that. Alright? Any questions? The other thing we have to remember about parents, they do two things that are important. They love us. And they discipline us. Right? How many of you like it when your parents love you? And how many of you like it when your parents discipline you? Of course not. But is discipline necessary? Would we ever learn the difference between right and wrong if we did not have discipline? Even God disciplines us. And we have to be aware of that. That God disciplines us because He loves us. When your parents yell and scream at you for running and playing in the street, do you think it's because they hate you? Why are they telling you to stay out of the street?
To ruin your fun.
Huh?
To ruin your fun.
Absolutely, to ruin your fun. They want to make your life miserable. Why don't they tell you to? Why don't they let you play in the street? What could happen?
You can get
You can get car don't hit you.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of the street. I love, not because I hate you. And because we have made mistakes before, we've gone down some roads that you haven't, and we would hope that you would learn from our mistakes. So we try to keep you as safe as we can by offering that discipline. So, God knows exactly when to discipline, and He knows exactly when to love. And that's the important thing to remember. Sometimes we parents don't know exactly what to do. How should we discipline? How should we do this? We're constantly questioning ourselves. God doesn't have to question. He knows exactly what we need, when we need it, and He gives it to us. He is the perfect parent. Any questions on God the parent? God the Father? Anything? Now, we go to the next word. Oops. Almighty. What does that mean?
Powerful.
Not only just powerful, what type of power?
Like sits above everybody else.
All power.
All power. Yeah. As Reed said, above everyone else. Why is it important to say that God is above everyone else, that He is all powerful? Well, number one, if He wasn't all powerful, would He be God?
No.
No.
Of course not. So He's got to be all powerful. That's just a logical step. The other things that we have to remember is all powerful also means that there will be justice. Because if God is all powerful and God is good, then all the rights that have ever been done, all the wrongs that have ever been done will be made right. You've had some bad things happen to you before, right? You've had people take advantage of you already. You've had people make fun of you. You've had your life be made miserable, at least on one level someplace, right? Or all of you live perfect lives. The promise is God will make everything right. God will not allow that to take place to be the last word. God will make everything right because He is all powerful and all good, and we need to remember that. The other thing that means we trust Him above everything else. Why do we trust God above everything else? Yes, He will always be there for us, even when we need Him most. But also, He will not try to destroy us. Everyone lives for something. Everyone worships something. And what you put your trust in is what you worship. Now, some people worship and trust money above everything else. They believe if they just had enough money, everything would be perfect. Is that right or wrong?
Wrong.
It's wrong. Why? Do you know of anybody who made so much money that they couldn't stop? They just kept making more money, and they would actually steal to even get more money?
Yes.
Steal.
Let me tell you about a gentleman by the name of Bernie Madoff.
Ha.
No,
Yeah,
not
but-
Sanders. I'm not doing Bernie Sanders. He's a little different. Bernie Madoff, there was a company in Houston called Enron. Some of your parents may know about this company and stuff like that. They were a big company, energy company. Bernie Madoff was the CEO. He had made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he stole even more. He stole billions of dollars. He made millions and he stole billions. Why, if you're making millions of dollars, would you steal billions?
So you can have more money and like buy better things.
Because not only did he trust money, money owned him. Money owned him. He couldn't stop it. because he was consumed by money. It was never enough. If you worship beauty, if you think being beautiful is the most important thing in the world, guess what's going to happen to you when you start getting old and getting wrinkles? Guess what happens when you start getting pimples? Doesn't that suck? When you start getting older, you're going to die 1,000 deaths because you're no longer beautiful. And you're going to spend tons of money on surgeries to keep your looks up, on all those creams and everything else to make yourself, on makeup and everything else to make yourself look good. Beauty will own you. Whatever you put your trust in, other than God, will own you. Does God own you, or does He give you freedom when you put your trust in Him? The answer to that question is He gives you freedom. I don't know if you know that yet or not, but God gives you freedom. Because that's what you do when you love someone. When you love someone, do you own them or do you give them freedom? Give them freedom. And finally, all powerful. I told you before, the strongest one makes the rules, right? Works with God too. All right, any questions on Almighty? Anything? Last one. Maker of heaven and earth. Last one. Now, when God created the world, Genesis chapter 1, you will see, if you read that over and over and over again, God made the sun and the moon. He said that it was good. God made the plants. He said that it was good. God made the animals. He said that they were good. God made the earth and the land. He said it was good. God made humankind, looked at the whole thing and said it was great. Great. Said it was very good. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you remembered that. He said everything fit. Everything was wonderful. God created everything to be good. Now, of course, now we know it's broken. It doesn't work like it should. But is there still that goodness in the earth?
Yes.
Is there still that goodness in you?
Yes.
Should we not care for that goodness? If God made heaven and earth, if God made the earth and He made it to be good, we need to care for it. So part of what we say when we say God made heaven and earth, He made us, that the creation is worthy of our care, attention. The big word for that is stewardship. And stewardship means trusting and caring for what God has made. The other thing when we talk about heaven and earth, and I talked about this just a little bit ago, and we're going to bring it around full circle. Freedom. God gives us freedom when He makes us. How do I know that we are free? If God controlled everything you said and everything that you did, what would you be?
Slave.
Huh?
Slave.
A slave. I said either a robot or a pet. If God controlled you in that manner, you would be a slave totally. And can you have a relationship with a slave? I mean, if you control everybody's thoughts and actions, I mean, is that really a relationship?
No.
God gives us freedom so He can be in relationship with us. He wants us to have a true relationship. If someone forced you to love them, that's not really love, is it? Love must be freely chosen. So God gives us freedom so that we can freely choose Him and love Him. So all of that we just covered is article number 1 of the Apostles' Creed. Do you have any questions? Comments? Anything else? Y'all cool? Did I go way up here? Okay. Well, we're done. Thank you for coming. Look forward to next month.